Well. Welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Watch 2K99. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch these videos. So, NBA playoffs time is here. The play-in games are underway, but the main event starts this weekend. Of course, the series I'm paying attention to is Knicks Pistons. Starts Saturday night, 6 p.m. at the Garden. 3 seed versus the 6 seed. A lot here at stake for the Knickerbockers. 51 wins this year. They are the 3 seed. But Knicks fans haven't taken this team to heart the way they have in the last couple of years. Something seems off. The team seems a little more offense-focused, not quite as tough, maybe not as defense-focused as I think the fans would like to see. So they actually won one more game than last season, and they dropped 1 seed. That's the way that it goes sometimes. But you look at the changes on this roster with mikalbridges, karlanthonytowns replacing Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and Isaiah Hartenstein. Well, at least in terms of roster spots anyway. But the offense definitely clicked. 5th in points scored per possession. Towns and Brunson, one of the league's best 1-2 punches. And the way they can score the ball, they provided better spacing for the off-ball players like oganunoby, mikalbridges, Josh Hart. But this fan base, very, very impatient, understandably so, after 2 straight second-round exits, and they're already ready to make a coaching change regardless of what happens in the playoffs, which is crazy to me. I've been a Tom Thibodeau fan for a long, long time, but how the Knicks do in these playoffs, it's going to affect a lot of things going forward. We know that the Knicks traded 5 first-round picks to bring in mikalbridges from the Brooklyn Nets. He is eligible for a contract extension this offseason. Now, he played every game this year, but no one can say that he quite lived up to the expectations that were on his shoulders. Will that change in the playoffs? Or maybe his mid-range game can factor in a little bit more than it would during the regular season where you're just chucking up threes all night long. Now, the Knicks, in my mind, are much more talented than the Pistons are player for player, but I wonder where the Knicks are mentally. You know, it's easy to see chemistry issues. A lot of people would tell you the starting lineup hasn't quite worked the way they've wanted it to. Having the week off, though, I think this is going to help them. You know, the Knicks have struggled with good opponents all year. If you look at teams with top 10 point differentials in the NBA, the Knicks win 6-16 against those teams. Now, I'm not going to be like some people who are being overdramatic, saying the Knicks have never beaten a good team. That's ridiculous. They beat Denver. They beat Dallas. They beat Houston. They beat Indiana. They beat Milwaukee. They've beaten all these teams. They haven't beaten great teams. They haven't beaten Oklahoma City, they haven't beaten Cleveland, and they haven't beat Boston. That's the key. So I mentioned that top 10 point differential stat. We look at the Pistons since mid-December, they're 9th in point differential. Pistons are streaking. They are playing with house money right now. You got to give them credit, and this goes to their coach, J.B. Bickerstaff, more than anybody. Last year, they were dead last in the Eastern Conference, won 14 games all year. This year, they won 44 games and took the 6th seed in the conference. And think about it. Last I checked, they didn't exactly add a Hall of Famer to their roster. You know, I didn't see LeBron James or Steph Curry or whoever coming over to the Pistons, to the Motor City. But give them credit. They won 3 of 4 against the Knicks this year. That's been talked about a lot. Well, I would remind you, Karl-Anthony Towns missed one of those games. In last week's game, both Anunoby and Hart sat out. But here's the way that I would describe it. The Pistons are what Knicks fans want the Knicks to be. Again, the Pistons are that overachieving, tough team that the Knicks had, 2 and 3 years ago. And the offense starts with Cunningham, who's averaging against the Knicks this year 30.8 points, 5 rebounds, 8.3 assists, 56% shooting from the field, and 52% from 3. Okay, he has been a master of the pick and roll against the Knicks. He has dominated basically every coverage they have thrown at him this year. Now, what Thibodeau would prefer to do is to have the big to drop and require Cunningham's defender to stay attached over screens and force Cunningham to shoot from mid-range. The problem is the Knicks have not defended him this year with the physicality and intensity that they need to do. They basically let him walk into whatever shot he wanted. So how do the Knicks contain one of the rising stars in the NBA? I would prefer to go Anunoby one-on-one, see where it goes from there. You could try Bridges. I think he's a little bit too slight to do it. He just doesn't have the strength to match up against Cunningham. You could try Josh Hart. I don't know if that's quite going to work. The thing that I don't want to see the Knicks do necessarily is double team. And Tom Thibodeau is such a defensive-minded coach. He's going to want to eventually try to double it if one-on-one coverage doesn't work out. But I'll tell you this, I'd rather try to double Cunningham than try Jalen or Karlanthony-Towns. That is not going to work. I want Brunson and Towns to be able to focus on offense, score the ball, and set up their teammates when needed. So past Cunningham, what does Detroit have to threaten the Knicks? Well, you got a lot of tested veterans in Tobiasharris, Tim Hardaway Jr., you've got Dennis Schrader off the bench. These are not the most threatening names, but they are definitely capable of hurting the Knicks if they get hot. Then again, I think about last year when Tobias Harris was in Philadelphia. He did nothing against the Knicks in that series. If the Knicks can slow down Cunningham, they're going to be in good shape. When he's on the bench, the Pistons score about 109 points per 100 possessions. That's bottom 5 in the league. Without Cunningham, Detroit doesn't put up offense. But there is one other threat on the Pistons that I want to acknowledge, and that's Malikbeasley, who wrote a whole Players Tribune article this week, the whole Detroit or nowhere, all this kind of stuff. The thing with Beasley, though, he's been really, really good, especially with his three-pointers. He became just the 4th player in league history to drop 300 from deep in a single season, which has been a little bit surprising considering up until now, Beasley's been more of a journeyman. Decent career, but not exactly putting up any historical stats. But now you can't leave him unguarded. He's shooting 41% from beyond the arc, which is really good when you're shooting about 9 attempts per game. I mean, that's Steph Curry levels. You leave Beasley open, he could hurt you. The Knicks cannot leave him alone. And we've seen the Knicks' defense against a three-pointer has been very hit or miss. They've got to look at Beasley. So how do the Knicks slow down the Pistons offense? Well, one thing you need to do is negate the transition. Detroit is 3rd in the league in terms of percentage of points coming off fast breaks, and they're nearly top 10 in forcing opponent turnovers. The reason why I think the Knicks have the advantage there, the Knicks are 3rd in the league in fewest turnovers per game. So if you don't turn the ball over, then that is going to make it much more difficult for Detroit to use that transition game, which is how they score a lot of points. That's one reason I think the Knicks are a bad match for Detroit. A lot of people talk about how Detroit is a bad matchup for the Knicks. I would argue it goes both ways. And I look at the Knicks. Jalen Brunson elevates his game in the playoffs. We don't know if Cade Cunningham can do that, but Jalen averages 30 points and 6 assists in the postseason. So how are the Pistons going to try to defend Jalen? I would expect Isaiah Thompson, their second-year wing player, to try to cover him. Thompson can cover both guards and forwards. They could try Tobias Harris, but that sure didn't work last year when Philly tried it. But I think one of the reasons the Knicks have the advantage is Karlanthony-Towns. Against Detroit, he averaged 24 points per game. Now, Detroit has a couple of good bigs in Isaiahstewart and Jalen Duran. They're more mobile than most centers you'll see in the league, but Towns is stronger, more experienced in playoff ball, and I think if he's hitting his outside shots, he's going to punish either of them because they can't defend Towns' outside shot, in my opinion. And don't expect Stewart and Duran on the floor at the same time. I would expect Bickerstaff to rotate those centers, see who the better matchup is, and he's going to ride that player probably about 30 minutes a game. And Cat's going to have to shoot well because Stewart and Duran can defend well down low in the paint. I think the points in the paint are going to be kind of hard to come by for the Knicks, so the outside shooting is going to be very important. And I'll give you another X factor that very few people are talking about, and that's the presence of Mitchell Robinson. Detroit has not seen him all year in any of those 4 previous games, but Robinson is the rim protector, and more than that, the pick-and-roll defender the Knicks may need, especially against an elite athlete like Cade Cunningham. And the Pistons do have some good rebounders in Stewart, Duran, and Harris. Robinson can help counter that. Now, I don't know if Tibbs is willing to play both Robinson and Towns at the same time, but it is something to really consider as well as Robinson defends the pick and roll. So how does this series turn out? Well, I say the first 2 games in the Garden are big. If the Knicks win both, this series is going to be done in 4 or 5 games. If they split those games, which is what I see happening, I'll say Knicks in 6, and that's what I'm going with. Both teams, I think, counter each other very, very well, but it's all about matchups in the playoffs. I know the Knicks seem a little bit lost right now. The Pistons have been playing with house money, but I think the week off favors the Knicks to sort of reset their minds, figure out how to game plan against Cade Cunningham. I think the Pistons are so young and inexperienced that they would be best off playing right now, while the Knicks might be a little bit vulnerable. I think the week off will help. Towns is playing his first playoff action with the Knicks, and I think he's ready to make a statement, especially after going to the Western Conference Finals last year. And the other thing with Detroit, they really lack that number 2 scorer. Now, I could see Harris having a big game here, Hardaway having a big game there, but nothing sustainable. The Pistons' inexperience and lack of a number 2 option, that is going to be their undoing. So I am going, even though it's going to be a tough series, give me Knicks in 6 to advance to the second round, likely against the Boston Celtics. Well, those are my thoughts on Knicks Pistons. If you've got some opinions, some predictions, put them right down there in the comments. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share with a friend. Support the channel. I appreciate it very much. And I will see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.